I cannot wait to watch Cam Ward make his NFL debut this Sunday, but I also got my eye on Brian Callahan, and I'll explain why on today's game preview edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, finally, we have made it, our first game preview episode of the season. I'm going to give you my keys to victory for the Tennessee Titans, including why Brian Callahan is under the microscope. I'm going to tell you my player matchups to watch, including why Calvin Ridley must be put in motion, and I'll give you my predictions for this game with my score prediction, my fantasy predictions, my gambling predictions, all of that on today's show. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, what are you doing? This season is here. I'm going to be going live immediately after the Tennessee Titans game on Sunday to break down everything that we saw, and then we'll have a whole week of discussion leading up to week 2 against the Rams. But with all that being said, we do got to talk about my keys to victory, and the number one key to victory, in my opinion, is what puts all of the eyes on Brian Callahan. The Tennessee Titans must prepare for pressure. The Denver Broncos blitzed the third most in the NFL last year. And look, it's not just third down pressure blitzes and things like that. No, they run blitz. The Broncos blitz even more often on early downs. They're top 2 in the NFL in blitz rate on early downs, which means they bring run blitzes. They don't just bring blitzes in passing scenarios. This is a team that will attack the run game with blitzes. And why does that put an emphasis on Brian Callahan? Well, what I would say is if you go back to last year, I defended Brian Callahan's play calling. I defended the scheme for the Tennessee Titans. I thought that Callahan, with the offensive coordinator duties, actually did a pretty good job last year. But one of the things that I did not like from Brian Callahan that we talked about very consistently is the slow developing run plays. The Titans would do these, in the backfield, fake here, turn around, bring a guy in deep motion, and then bring him all the way back after the ball snap. All these slow developing run plays that would allow teams to bring pressure downhill and totally disrupt the Titans behind the line of scrimmage. They're just now handing off the ball to Tony Pollard, and there's a linebacker a yard deep in the backfield. Those slow developing run plays are not going to work against a team that blitzes early and often, like the Denver Broncos. So, we could focus on dealing with, pressure in the pass game. And Cam Ward talked about this earlier this week. Protections. You got to make sure your protections are in a good place. You got to make sure based on what looks you're seeing from the Broncos, you're going to slide this way. You're going to slide that way. You're going to audible this. You're going to change that. The Titans have to be 100% buttoned up on how they deal with pressure, not only in the pass game, which is kind of on Cam Ward to a point, but Callahan needs to have him ready for that, but also for the run. Again, heavy early down blitzing team. Watch for the Broncos to bring the pressure on early downs. What's crazy is the Broncos actually blitz a lot less in third and short to third and medium situations. They don't blitz anywhere near as much as they do on early downs in those situations. So I think that the Titans need to be more prepared for the early down blitzes. And I think we could see Vance Joseph actually play a little cat and mouse with Cam Ward when it comes to blitzing on passing downs, where they show like they are going to blitz, and the Titans are thinking, they're going to blitz a ton. It's a rookie quarterback. They're going to blitz a ton. And they don't blitz early on, and then they start bringing those blitzes later in the second half. So Cam Ward needs to be mentally prepared, and I am judging Brian Callahan on whether or not he gets his student ready for the test. If every student fails a test, it's the teacher who failed the test, not the students. So with that in mind, my number one key to victory is prepare for pressure. Number two, we move to the defensive side of the ball, and it's stop the run. So the Broncos actually were one of the worst teams in the NFL. My guy Sayer Benninger from Locked On Broncos mentioned this on yesterday's crossover episode. If you missed it, go back and check that out. Some great behind the enemy lines perspective there. But he talked about how the Broncos were one of the worst offenses in the NFL when it came to going 3 and out. Okay? And a lot of that is because the Broncos did not have a good run game last year. And Sean Payton has blamed his running backs from last year, if you listen and read in between the lines and some of his quotes. And I think the Broncos running backs, you could just be honest and look at last year, weren't very good. The running backs are better this year, but I personally, just as a philosophy, I don't believe that the running backs are more important to the run game than the O-line. I think the offensive line is what creates a good run game, okay? And if you have a great running back with a good offensive line, now you have magic, which is what the Titans had from 2019 to 2021, right? That was a really good offensive line for the Titans in run blocking. And then Derrick Henry is a special player. You put those two things together and you have a magical run game. You know what I mean? So just because the Broncos upgraded to J.K. Dobbins and they drafted R.J. Harvey, I don't think that all of a sudden they're going to have some magically awesome run game. I think the offensive line for the Broncos is better in pass protection than they are in the run game. So, that's the way that their team is set up, and that's the talent of their offensive line. So, to me, if the Titans can stop the run, and this isn't just about what hurts the Broncos, this is about what can help the Titans too, because let's be honest with each other. We've talked about it all summer. We talked about it all offseason. We talked about it all preseason. The Titans' pass rush is not going to be good. It's not. Draymond Jones is more of a run defender. T'Vondre Sweat hasn't proven that he can be a consistent help in the pass rush. Sebastian Joseph Day is a very good depth player, but he's not a threatening pass rusher consistently. And then we know that, Arden Key is who Arden Key is. He's a good tertiary rusher. He's not a starting edge rusher, in my opinion. And then Femi Oladipo, we've already seen it. He's going to take a while to develop. So what are the Titans going to do to try to create pressure? 1, 2, 3. Say it together, friends. Blitz. They're going to blitz the heck out of the quarterback because they can't just rush 4 or do pass rush stunts up front and twists and loops. They're not going to be able to do that stuff and get to the quarterback consistently. The Titans are going to have to be a heavy blitz team. And here's the thing. If it's 3rd and short, if it's 3rd and medium, and you bring those heavy blitzes, it might be easy for Bo Nix just to hit his first read, throw to where the blitz is at, get your 4-5, and keep a drive moving. Now you're not getting the 3 and outs that hurt the Broncos offense last year. So the Titans have to stop the run against the Broncos, get back to the nobody runs the ball on the Titans mindset. They have to get back to that because if you put the Broncos in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, now you can blitz, and now Bo Nix can't get the ball out of his hands so quickly to defeat the blitz. So it's all symbiotic together in how it goes. And then the final key to victory for me is the turnover battle. And quite frankly, this is the most important key to victory for the Titans. I mentioned this stat earlier this week. I mentioned it on yesterday's show. Last year, the Broncos 0-4 when they lost the turnover battle. Only 3-7 when they lost or tied the turnover battle. So the Broncos, when they tie in turnovers, they're only 3-7. The reason the Broncos were so good last year was because they got turnovers so consistently and they gave the ball back to Bo Nix. And even though their offense had some struggles, the defense was so lights out and gave the offense the ball back so often that the offense was still able to put up points and they were still able to win 10 games. It is all about the Broncos defense. And let me say this. If you want to be somebody who's excited about the Titans and thinks they can pull off this game against the Broncos, the number one word that you need to be thinking about is regression. Year to year, turnovers are not consistent. You can be a good defense, but turnovers in the NFL, how often a defense creates turnovers, very volatile from year to year. Turnovers are a very volatile stat in the NFL from year to year. So if you're a Titans fan and you want to say, I think they can upset the Broncos, it's the Broncos defense won't force as many turnovers this year and hopefully not against the Titans. And then the Titans defense forces more turnovers this year. So if the Titans are prepared for the Broncos' pressure, they led the NFL in sacks last year. If they stop the run and create 3rd and long so they can blitz against the Broncos' offense, and they win or just don't lose the turnover battle, I think the Titans have a great chance to pull off an upset victory against the Denver Broncos on the road. But now let's zoom in and talk about the player matchups that I'm looking for in this one. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can take home real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. Think, Calvin Ridley, more than 50.5 passing yards. Cam Ward, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Jeffrey Simmons, more than half a sack. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players. It's really that easy. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. It's Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. An athlete focuses on every detail. Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, the intuitive controls, the standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. I love my Mazda, and you will too. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Titans fans, let's continue today's game preview edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We are so back, folks. I just went over my keys to victory. Now I want to dive into my players to watch. I'm going to do all my fantasy, gambling, score predictions at the end of the show. Before we continue, though, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But number one, my first player to watch, it's got to be Cam Ward, right? Cam Ward is the number one player to watch. And here's the thing. If Cam is special, the Tennessee Titans are going to win the game. He's that good. He's that special that if he plays special, he's good enough to win the Titans this ballgame. He's good enough to make big plays and big moments. And not only can he make big plays and big moments, Cam Ward is special enough to take plays that are going terribly wrong and turn them into spectacular plays for the Titans. Look, this is a totally tough environment. I mean, this is insanely tough. Rookie quarterbacks making their first start in the NFL have a historically bad win percentage as it is. You go on the road against a playoff team from last year with a Super Bowl winning head coach in a altitude environment that's hard to play in any month of the season. That's a lot of things going against Cam Ward to make it one of the most difficult opening games for a rookie quarterback in NFL history. I would literally put my money on that this is one of the most difficult environments a rookie quarterback has ever made their first start in week one. So you take all of that into account, and it's going to be hard for Cam Ward to play well. It's going to be difficult. So that's why it's like, if he does go out there and ball out, we're going to freak out on the show. Like, I'm sorry, you call it week one overreaction all you want. If Cam Ward goes out there and balls out like Marcus did or like Will Levis did in his first start, actually, now I'm reconsidering. But no, look, we can't do that. We can't do that. I don't want Cam Ward to play bad so that it bucks the trend of Titans quarterbacks playing good in their first game and not working out. Like, no, I want Cam Ward to go in there and slice these boys up, okay? But again, it's going to be difficult. All the pressure on him, all the circumstances, all that, how he handles it. Again, I said this earlier in the week. A lot of you guys know that I'm not super confident in the Titans to win this game. But I am confident in Cam Ward. And what I want to see from Cam Ward in this game, I want to see him be poised. I want to see the Titans offense look like a professional unit. I don't want a bunch of pre-snap penalties and operational penalties and Cam Ward making, crazy Will Levis type plays where he's risking the ball and just be a pro quarterback out there, look comfortable, look like you belong. Not very different than what my expectations were in the preseason. And honestly, that's not any doubt on Cam Ward or anything. That's my doubt of everything around Cam Ward. Like, we're going to go right now to my second player to watch, and it's Calvin Ridley. And what do the Titans need to do with Calvin Ridley? They must put him in motion. The Titans used motion 44% of the time on 3rd and short to 3rd and medium last year. That's going to need to be up. They're going to need to use motion more than 44% of the time against the Broncos. Why? Because on 3rd and short to medium, the Broncos ran cover 1 man 30% of the time. Now, their other types of defenses are more even, like their cover 4, their cover 2 percentages are both like 16, 17%, but they like to be in cover 1 man with a deep safety and then an intermediate defender over the middle in zone. They like to be in cover 1 man on 3rd down. And if you guys have been watching the show, listening to the show, or just paying attention to the Titans for the last couple of years, people love to play tight man coverage against the Titans because the Titans have not had a wide receiver that can consistently beat that man coverage since A.J. Brown. Now, who can beat that man coverage for the Titans? Calvin Ridley. Here's the problem, though. Calvin Ridley is probably going to have to deal with Pat Surtain. And that's why Nick Holes, Titans offensive coordinator, who spoke earlier this week, he said, we're going to move Calvin Ridley around the formation a ton. And they have to, because Calvin Ridley one-on-one with Pat Surtain consistently over an overall game, that gives no advantage to the Titans. He can erase Calvin Ridley, and now you're dealing with 34-year-old Tyler Lockett and a 4th-round rookie in Alec Iomanor and Van Jefferson and Chim Dike. These guys are not going to beat the Broncos in man coverage consistently all game long. That's not going to we can't expect that. Maybe they do. Maybe Alec comes out and Alec dominates Riley Moss all game. Maybe. But you can't expect that to happen. That can't be the game plan. So how do you get Calvin Ridley free? How do you free up your best wide receiver? Number one, like Ho said, move him around the formation. Maybe Pat Surtain will not shadow him. But even if he does, motion, motion, motion. Calvin Ridley should be in motion 60 to 70%. He's faster than Pat Surtain. So if you want to beat Pat Surtain in coverage, you got to beat him with speed. And getting Calvin Ridley across the formation on drag routes and crossing routes and things like that to allow Cam Ward to dump off easy passes to him, rub routes that create traffic over the middle of the field and get guys open, that is going to be so, so critical this week. So, number 2 player to watch, by far, matchup, Calvin Ridley against Pat Surtain. The man coverage that the Broncos are likely going to run in 3rd and short and 3rd and medium situations. But for my final player to watch, we move to the defensive side of the ball, and it's L'Jarius Sneed. Okay, so number 1 in a vacuum, Sneed needs to step up, period. I don't care who the opponent is, L'Jarius Sneed needs to step up and be the L'Jarius Sneed the Titans paid for and traded for, period. No questions about it. That's known on its own. However, when you add in Courtland Sutton, listen, I think the Broncos have a good offense. I do. It's not bad. But outside of Courtland Sutton, name a wide receiver on the Broncos. Now, some of you guys who play fantasy football and things like that, you could probably do that pretty quickly. But I see Troy Franklin. who had a disappointing rookie year for the Broncos last year. I see Marvin Mims, who is an explosive player, but was more of a gadget player last year than a true wide receiver. I see Pat Bryant, who I liked out of Illinois. I like Pat Bryant. But is Pat Bryant ready to be a consistent contributor and beat Jarvis Brownlee Jr. in man coverage and beat L'Jarius Sneed in man coverage? I don't think so. I would tell you if there was a huge weakness on the Broncos offense, it's their wide receiver group outside of Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant. If that was Calvin Ridley, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, we would still be calling it the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. So just because it's the Broncos doesn't mean that I'm going to lie and say that they're better than they. No, this wide receiver group outside of Cortland Sutton is mid, the middest of mid, okay? So if L'Jarius Sneed can lock down Cortland Sutton like L'Jarius Sneed has in the past when he played for the Chiefs, if L'Jarius Sneed can lock down Cortland Sutton, I'm not worried about any of the other Broncos wide receivers. Let's put L'Jarius Sneed one-on-one against Cortland Sutton and let all the rest of the defense focus on the rest of the wide receivers and see what happens. I'm willing to take that bet. And hey, maybe Marvin Mims goes crazy. Maybe Troy Franklin catches a 60-yard bomb because they are very fast wide receivers. They have speed, no doubt. But I'm not going to let Cortland Sutton be the one who beats me. You know what I mean? Like, sure, if I lose to those other guys, I can live with that. But I want to see L'Jarius Sneed be worth what he's being paid, what was paid to get him, and he's got a matchup right away with Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's a really good football player. He ain't Justin Jefferson. He ain't Jamar Chase. He ain't Nico Collins. He ain't A.J. Brown. He ain't Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would say that Cortland Sutton is in like the third tier of wide receivers. Now, he's still a top 15, top 20 wide receiver, but I don't think that Cortland Sutton is significantly better than Calvin Ridley if you put him in the same scenario. So the point is, Cortland Sutton, very good player, but it's not like a prime, best version of L'Jarius Sneed couldn't shut him down. So players to watch, obviously Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley against Pat Surtain, and L'Jarius Sneed against Cortland Sutton. That's what I'm looking for from a player perspective. But now it's time, folks. Let's make some predictions. Let me know what you think the score of this game will be down below in the comments, or hit me up on Twitter at TicTacTitans and let me know your thoughts. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. And hey, Alec Iomanner absolutely delivered throughout training camp, throughout the offseason process, and it led to him being a starter in week one. I'm sorry, but we've been paying attention week after week. That performance is not a fluke. Alec Iomanner is on a good streak right now of good football, and just like Alec Iomanner delivers for the Tennessee Titans, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including a $100 credit from DoorDash. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November the 18th. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, our first game preview episode of the year. I'm so hyped. I'm so excited. I'm sure you guys could probably yell, stop yelling. I'm not listening to it. I'm not going to stop yelling. I'm never going to stop yelling. I'm never going to stop screaming and ranting and raving, and you're never going to make me. We're excited about the Titans over here, so get excited or deal with it. That's all I got to say about that. But with that being said, prediction time, folks. And look, here's the time where you guys all get to yell back at me. Everybody yells at me, blah, blah, blah. You're a hater. You have no faith. I would pick the Titans to win every time. Titans 17-0. I know. But for better or worse, guys, I can't live in that world. I can't live in that world where I pretend and I lie to you guys the Titans are going to win. I don't think the Titans are going to win. They're playing the Broncos, who went to the playoffs last year. I love the Broncos this year overall outside of the Titans. I think they're going to win their division. I can't get on here and lie to you guys. How could I sleep with myself at night if I just lied? Okay? So, the reality is, I think the Tennessee Titans lose this game 24-13. 27-13, I think, wouldn't be crazy. But I think the Titans do lose by multiple scores. And I'll be honest with you. I think the Titans aren't going to win the turnover battle is the problem. I think Cam Ward's going to have an interception at minimum. I think there will be a guaranteed interception. I think there will be a lot of sacks as well. I'm not confident in Dan Moore. Some people are worried about Dan Moore. He's on the injury report. My guy Easton Free said everyone's overreacting to Dan Moore being on the injury report, which, in my opinion, means that Dan Moore is going to play. And I retweeted that, and Easton liked it. So seems like he's agreeing with me on that as well. Dan Moore is going to play in this game, but Dan Moore's not very good. He's average at best. He's average at best, and I continue to be worried about him. And in other matchups this year, it might not matter as much. I'm not going to be this concerned, but it's week 1 for this new offensive line. Kevin Zeitler didn't play at all in the preseason. This offensive line has not played together. Lloyd Cushenberry didn't play at all in the preseason. So they're going to be, I think this offensive line will be majorly improved. I think the offensive line will be good this year, but I don't think they'll be good week 1. Cam's going to be running for his life. He's going to be down in the game. He's going to be trying to make stuff happen, and I think there's going to be turnovers. So with the turnovers, that's going to give the Broncos an easy touchdown somewhere in there, which I'm not going to be happy about when it happens. And I don't think the Titans are going to be able to put enough points on the board. And look, you can be mad at me all you want, but look at projected points scored this week from any analytics outlet you want to look at, and the Titans are dead last. Now, does that mean that the analytics will be right and that the Titans are guaranteed to score not very many points? No, of course not. That's why they play the game. If it was just analytics-based, but at some point you do got to look and be like, it is not likely that the Titans put up a ton of points in this game, even if the Titans are much better this season. This is a very tough game. I've explained it all week. Again, I have the Titans losing this one 24-13. I think it's going to be a tough one. Quite frankly, I think Brian Callahan is going to get smoked by Sean Payton. I'm sorry, guys. I don't think Brian Callahan's a good coach. I don't. Sorry. I had so much faith in him last year. And it's funny, you hate Callahan. We get it. Blah, 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 blah. Well, last year, everybody said you love Callahan. We get it. So do I love Callahan or do I hate Callahan? Because you guys complain at me with both sides. You're a Callahan defender. You hate Brian Callahan. Maybe it's neither. Maybe I don't love Brian Callahan and I don't hate Brian Callahan. Maybe I'm just evaluating what he is doing. And I don't have a lot of faith that he's going to have any chance in this matchup to outcoach Sean Payton, especially when Jeffrey Simmons is in the media saying, Bo Nix is a first read and run quarterback. Bo Nix is one of the least quarterbacks in the NFL that throw to their first read. He's middle of the pack if you want to go by first read percentage. You want to go by how often he's throwing that first read and not going to another one. He's in the top 5. Funny, my guy Easton, we were both talking about this. We both put out different stats. So why is Jeffrey Simmons doing media, giving bulletin board material to the Broncos saying, yeah, Bo Nix is a first read and run quarterback? Why is he giving bulletin board material to a team that went to the playoffs last year, and he's not even right? He's wrong. He is statistically uninformed. That's worrisome to me. It reminds me of last year when Arden Key and Jeffrey Simmons both said that Drake May wasn't a mobile quarterback. Do you know anything about Drake May? He's not Mike Vick, but Drake May is a mobile quarterback. And did you see Drake May when he tied up the game at the end, running around, getting all sacks? If the Titans didn't think Drake May was a mobile quarterback, they must have been shocked after the game at how he used his mobility. What are they teaching them? If Arden Key and Jeffrey Simmons are both in media going, yeah, Drake May isn't a mobile quarterback, we're not worried about him running around. And then he's saying Bo Nix is a first read and run quarterback, when that's not true. What are they teaching him? So I could talk about Brian Callahan, but I'm worried about what Denard Wilson is coaching behind the scenes if his players are so uninformed in what they're focused on. Now, some people are saying, oh, it's a bait and switch. Simmons was just saying that to throw. Yeah, right. I'm sorry, that's cope, folks. So I'm very concerned that the Titans are going to have a good game plan going into this because there seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of the quarterback that they're playing against. And it's happened multiple times under Denard Wilson. So I'm really worried about the coaching matchup. Vance Joseph and Sean Payton against Denard Wilson and Brian Callahan. Not great. So with that in mind, keeping it plus 100, my gambling advice for this game. The line has moved a ton. Like the line started at 6.5. It moved to 7.5. I saw it at 8.5. I've seen it, 9 potentially. 9? Now, 9 is a lot. I'll give you that. 9 is a lot. And I'm hearing, 95% of bettors are on the Broncos. And anytime there's that many people on a team, it's usually smart to go the other way. But I'm sorry, folks. Like I said, I think the Titans lose 24-13, 27-13. And by my math, that's more than 8.5 on FanDuel. So I'm going with Broncos minus 8.5. But what I will tell you is, I think under 42.5 is an absolute lock. Under 42, unless the Broncos blow them out and go crazy. Under 42.5 is an absolute lock. And let me give you another one. Right now, Alec Iomanner, let me make sure it hasn't changed because he became the starter. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the best information possible. But last I saw on FanDuel for Alec Iomanner, he was 14.5 yards over under. 14.5. If it's anything close, 21.5. It's gone up a little bit. 21.5 is not as hammer as 14.5, but still, we talked about if Pat Surtain is on Calvin Ridley, the Titans will probably have to go to Alec quite a bit. So 21.5 yards. I love the over on that for Alec Iomanner. And quite frankly, I would take an Alec Iomanner anytime touchdown as well. You probably get good odds on that. The last thing that I'm going to talk about here in my prediction phase is my beautiful dark twisted fantasy player of the week. This is the fantasy player for the Titans that I think you could play in daily fantasy. I think it could be a good, if you're in a tough spot, which week 1, you're usually not in a tough spot. There's no buys, not as many injuries, all that. But I think Chigakonkwo could have a big game because the one weakness that I see in the Broncos pass defense is their linebackers. And I think if you get Chigakonkwo matched up in man coverage, like we talked about earlier in the show, against the Broncos linebackers, I think Chigakonkwo could have a big-time game. If you're looking for a value play in daily fantasy so that you could stack the top of your lineup, I'd go with Chigakonkwo. I think he's going to have a pretty good day because he's going to get good matchups in man coverage against linebackers. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.